In ancient times, when giants walked the earth and kings were forged in war, there was one whose name still echoes through the dust of history. Og, the king of Bashan, the last titan in a vast expanse of Bashan, among towering fortresses and fertile plains, a name thundered through the valleys, a name that inspired both respect and fear. Og. He was no ordinary man. He was a titan among mortals, a colossus whose silhouette darkened the horizon, and whose strength made even the bravest warriors tremble. It was said that his bed, forged from iron and adorned with gleaming gems, measured 9 cubits long and 4 wide. Only a being of colossal proportions could rest in such a bed, and Og did so with pride, for it was proof of his supremacy over Bashan and beyond. In an age when the earth trembled under the weight of giants and men gazed up at the mountains with reverent fear, Og was not always the fearsome king that history remembers. There was a time when he was just a young titan, raised in the frozen heights of Mount Hermon, where cold winds lashed his hardened skin and eagles flew high as heralds of the gods. From a young age, Og listened to tales of his lineage, the Rephaim, an ancient race of imposing beings who once dominated the earth. They were more than warriors. They were living symbols of power and destruction. His father, a legendary combatant, taught him to wield a sword as large as a tree trunk and to hurl rocks capable of toppling entire fortresses. Strength is a gift, my son, but it is not everything. A true king protects his people not only with his fists, but with his judgment and his heart. However, Og's destiny was written in the ashes of war. The lands of Bashan, rich and prosperous, were coveted by kings and conquerors. It didn't take long before the young giant faced his first battle. In the vast plains of Arab, an army of invaders came, intending to take what was not theirs. But Og, with a roar that shook the earth, leapt into battle. His sword flashed like lightning in the dusk, carving lines of death through the enemy ranks. The ground turned red, and Og's name began to spread like a harbinger of terror across surrounding nations. But this was only the first page of his story, for Og was not only a formidable warrior, he was also a builder. With his own hands, he raised impregnable fortresses and carved roads through mountains to connect his kingdom. His iron bed, which would later become legend, was forged by Bashan's finest artisans. Day and night they worked, creating a bed fit for a king, but unknowingly also fit for a tomb. As he gazed toward the horizon for his throne, Og did not yet know that his greatest trial was still to come. For in the desert, an unexpected enemy was rising. A people without a homeland but with unbreakable faith. A people guided by a God who could not be seen, but whose power was revealed through miracles. It was said that this God had parted the sea in two to save his people, rained fire from the sky, and brought down walls with the sound of trumpets. These stories reached Og's ears like echoes of the impossible, but disturbingly real. Og listened with skepticism, but something stirred within him at night, when darkness wrapped around his fortress. He dreamed of an army engulfed in flames, of a leader in simple robes and staff that made the earth tremble. In those dreams, his iron bed was no longer a symbol of his greatness, but a cold, lonely tomb. One day, a messenger stood before Og's throne, pale with fear but firm in voice, bearing the weight of truth. My lord, the Israelites have crossed the Jordan. They have taken Jericho. Now they march north toward us. Og stood, his shadow stretching across the stone walls like a storm omen. Let them come. Let them try to take what is mine. I will show them the power of Bashan. But in his heart, a question lingered. Was this the enemy his father had warned him about? The one that would test not only his strength, but his very soul? The days of peace and Bashan were fading like morning mist. Rumors of the Israelite advance came with every merchant, every traveler, every spy who dared to cross the kingdom's borders. They said this was no ordinary army, that they did not conquer by numbers or skill in battle, but by something else. Something no sword, no wall, no spear could stop. The will of their God. OG stood firm. But at night, in the darkness of his fortress, doubts crept through the halls like shadows. In his dreams, he saw his warriors fall without reason, saw his great iron throne covered in dust, saw his name fading into history. He woke up in a cold sweat, remembering his father's warning. My lord, our scouts have confirmed it. The Israelites have crossed the Jordan River. They took Jericho with ease, and they are not stopping. Let them come. They are nothing but homeless nomads. Their number cannot compare to ours. We are giants. We are the lineage of the Rephaim. Let them taste our fury and see how they fall beneath our blades. But deep within, he knew this battle would be different. It was not just warriors facing off on a battlefield. There was something more, something that defied the logic of war. On the night before the great battle, OG sat on his iron bed, his gaze fixed on the horizon. He didn't sleep. He couldn't. Outside, his army slept, confident of victory. But within, the Titan of Bashan felt that something greater was at stake. From the enemy camp, a murmur rose on the breeze. It was not the roar of war or the clash of preparation. It was a chant, a hymn that floated in the air like a prayer, a whisper directed to a power OG did not understand. For the first time in his life, OG felt small, not in size, but in something deeper. As if, despite his strength, his lineage, his iron throne, he was about to face something that could not be defeated with a sword. Dawn arrived stained with red and gold, as if the sky itself foretold the blood that would soon be shed on the plains of Edrei. The destiny of a lineage was about to be decided. OG rose from his iron bed and walked with a firm step to the field where his army awaited him. Tens of thousands of tall and powerful warriors, descendants of the ancient Rephaim, waited for the signal from their king. Today we fight not just for Bashan. Today we fight for our history, for our lineage, to prove that giants do not fall to ordinary men. In the distance, a cloud of dust began to rise, not from a storm, but from the relentless advance of the Israelite army. OG scouts returned with tense faces. There are many, my lord, but it is not their number that troubles us. For unlike any army OG had ever faced, the Israelites did not advance with war cries or boastful declarations. They marched in eerie silence, as if they already knew the battle was won before it began. At the front of the army was not a massive warrior, nor a monarch adorned in gold, but a man, a general chosen by his God, Joshua. OG looked at him with disdain. This man thinks he can challenge me, he thought, but a chill ran down his spine as he recalled the stories. Wasn't this the same people whose God had brought down walls with just the sound of trumpets? Was this not the same God who had parted the sea in two? The sun rose over the battlefield. The wait was over. With a ferocious roar, OG raised a sword and gave the order to war. The giants of Bashan charged with the strength of a storm. Every step shook the ground. Each blow knocked down dozens of enemies. The Israelites were smaller, lighter, but they fought with unwavering conviction. Yet there was something strange in the way they fought. They didn't fight with rage or despair. They fought with faith, and the more they fell, the louder their song echoed, as if each of them knew they were not alone in that battle. OG advanced like an unleashed colossus, his sword tracing arcs of death around him. No one could stop him, but then a dull noise struck him from behind. He staggered, pain, something he hadn't felt in years. He looked at his arm and saw the blood. He raised his gaze and saw the Israelites advancing with unstoppable determination. But what unsettled him most was seeing Joshua standing on a hilltop, arms raised to sky, not moving, not fighting, as if he were not the one leading the battle, but something far greater. No, it can't be. Suddenly, a deafening crash shook the earth. A lightning bolt fell from the sky, illuminating the battlefield with a blinding light. OG felt an invisible force strike him, pushing him backward. His knees buckled. The sword that had been an extension of his will for years fell from his hands. For the first time in his life, OG, the giant of Bashan, felt something he had never known: fear. The sky darkened. A storm was forming over Edrei. He tried to rise, but the weight of battle, the weight of destiny, was too much. He looked at Joshua, now walking toward her with unsettling calm. It is not I who has defeated you, OG. It is the Lord, the God of Israel, who has decreed your fate. OG, the Titan of Bashan, was on his knees. The blood-stained earth seemed to absorb his fall. An echo of history being written in that very moment. The giant tried to rise, but his body no longer responded to its former strength. Muscles once capable of crushing walls now trembled under a weight he had never known. Defeat. Joshua stopped in front of him, his robe fluttering in the wind. He held no sword in his hand, nor did he show the fury of a conqueror. He simply looked at OG with a calm more disturbing than any threat. Who are you? It is not I who has defeated you, OG. It is the God of Israel who has sealed your destiny. OG raised his eyes to the sky, now covered in dark clouds. In that instant, he understood it didn't matter how tall a giant stood. There was always something greater. The storm erupted with a roar, and with it, OG's final battle came to an end. The Israelites advanced through Bashan, claiming what once had been the domain of giants. The walls once thought indestructible were conquered. The names of the Rephaim were erased from history. The body of OG, once a symbol of power, now lay motionless. His immense figure was observed with a mixture of awe and fear. The last giant had fallen, but his story didn't end there. His iron bed, once a symbol of supremacy, was preserved as a relic, a testimony that even the mightiest can be defeated. Years passed, and tales of OG became legend. It was said that on nights with full moon, when the wind howled through Bashan, you could still hear his footsteps rumbling through the mountains. Some said his spirit never left his land, that he still wandered, protecting what was once his. Others claimed the story was a reminder, an echo from the past, teaching that the pride of giants could never defy divine will. In the end, OG was remembered not only as a warrior, but as a symbol of the clash between strength and faith. That true greatness is measured by size, but by the wisdom to recognize what lies beyond earthly power. And so ended the era of the giants, and with it, the reign of the last Titan of Bashan. If this story fascinated you, subscribe and share so more people can discover the hidden mysteries of ancient times. There are still many legends to be told, and you will be part of this adventure.